Hey everybody, if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, Washington, and you want to know everything about the pros and the cons, then you've come to the right place, because that's what I'm going to talk about right now in this video. So let's go. Hello everyone. I'm Dave Baker with the Living in Vancouver, Washington team. Now, if you want to know everything about what it's like to live, to work, to eat, to sleep, and to get outdoors and have some fun in Vancouver, Washington, then you've got to click that little notification button and tap that little bell so you'll be notified every time I put out a new video all about living in Vancouver. All right, now if you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, Washington, or anywhere in the surrounding area like Camas, Washington, or Washougal, or even Portland, you've got to get in touch with us, because I'm constantly talking to people about why I like Washington and what's so cool about it, and it's become quite a hot market. So you want to send us a text message, you can write us an email, you can give us a call, you can even schedule a Zoom call below 24/7. And we have got your back when you're thinking about moving out to Vancouver, Washington. That is what the team is here for your relocation needs. Okay, let's get started and look at our pros and cons list of relocating and living in Vancouver, Washington. I'm gonna start with the pros, because who doesn't like to start with a little bit of happiness and sunshine, right? All right, so number one, you cannot leave this out whenever you're talking about moving to Washington State, and that is no income tax. Whether you make $30,000 a year, or if you make $300,000 a year, or maybe you make $3 million a year, not paying state income tax is a savings. So that is one of the biggest pros. It's one of only a few states in the entire country that doesn't have state income tax. And I think that's actually a reason that quite a few people move out to Washington. You get to be in the Northwest, but you still get that no state income tax. So we've got to put that on the top of the pros list. Okay, let's talk about number two, outdoor activities. Washington is located in the Pacific Northwest, right? Washington State is in the upper left or upper west corner of the United States, and the Pacific Northwest would be Washington, Oregon, and depending on what you think, Idaho. Some people just call that the Northwest, but for this video, let's just put those three together. The number of outdoor activities and proximity to things that you can do outdoors is off the chart, okay? There are so many things that you can do. You will have access to Mount Hood, you've got Mount St. Helens, you've got numerous additional places like Hood River, you've got the entire coast, whether you've got Long Beach, Oceanside, then you've got the coast in Oregon. You've got to give that another little count here. You've got Astoria, you've got Cannon Beach. All these places are not very far. They're within a quick drive. So if you want to have a weekend getaway, you can take day trips. You could spend the night. You might want to go out for a whole week. Maybe you want to go fishing, or you want to get into the water and stand up paddleboard. It's all right there. And of course, we cannot forget that Vancouver, Washington is located right on the Columbia River. It's right there on the river. It's amazing. So you've got so many outdoor activities and fun things that you can do with just a short drive. You've even got cute little towns that you can drive to along 14, or if you go on the other side of the river along 84, lots of little places to check out. So that is a major pro, especially today when people are much more concerned about all the fun stuff to do in their neighborhood, but also within driving distance. So speaking of fun stuff, gotta have number three. Number three is that there's a downtown. There's a place for you to go and have fun. You have places you can go on the weekend or to get coffee. Maybe you want to have a meeting and you don't go to an office anymore, so you go to a local coffee shop, you grab lunch down in the downtown area. It's a great place to be social and to get some stuff done. You've got some new coffee shops popping up and other places to hang out that I mentioned in my other videos. And to me, I think that is a major plus. It's something that I want to have in a city where I'm living. I want to have some sort of downtown close by. Now, Don't forget, this isn't a huge downtown where everyone goes to work every day and then commutes back out to a suburb. That's not how it is. It's more of a place where you go for fun. There are some office buildings and things like that, of course, but when you look around, and you're gonna want to make sure to watch my full day vlog of me going downtown to Vancouver when I was down there showing off all the different parts, and you'll see all the stuff there is to do. You know, you've got some theaters, performing arts places, there's a comedy club, you've got a bunch of restaurants. I was recently there and I went to a great barbecue spot. I also went to a place that had some cool ciders and other things that were really fun. The whole environment was really fun because you can walk from one place to another. And that type of thing, it's really convenient when you have that in your own city, right? Because then you don't have to drive super far. You don't have to drive 45 minutes to go to town, or whatever expression you like to use. It's so convenient. And of course, if you're watching any of my videos, you know that I love convenience. And I love convenience now more so than ever. That's why I'm so excited that Vancouver has that outdoor activity, and we have the downtown area in Vancouver, and that gives you so many things in close proximity to your home that you don't have to worry about taking a long trip to go somewhere, right? With the way travel is now and people are doing more things close to home, it's great to live in a place where you have so much that you can do where you don't even have to think about traveling, right? There's this thing that I noticed when I started to live in a place where I had more to do in my city. So just a quick personal story here. I used to always think about going somewhere far away. I used to always think about traveling. And of course, I still think about traveling and, you know, visiting other countries and things like that. But before I felt like I had a lot of stuff to do close by, I was constantly looking for somewhere to go on the weekend or something to do. But when you live in a place where you feel like you have enough entertainment for you and your family and your friends, and not just entertainment, I'll just say things to do. When you feel like you have enough things to do that are convenient and close by, it's so nice because you can think of trips as something you do less frequently, you know? It's also saving you money because you don't have to go very far. But as I mentioned, you do have all those places you can go to on a day trip. And if you're an outdoors person and you like to go hiking or do any of that stuff, you want to go fishing, you want to take out your personal watercraft like a jet ski, or you want to go boating, all that stuff is readily available. I just went for another hike up by Lacamas Lake. That was really nice. I thought I was in like this mythical world because the way the trees were coming over me. You've got Vancouver Lake. You've got all these places to go, and they're right there. It's such a close drive, and I think that's amazing. So let me just throw in number 4, no traffic. There is hardly any traffic in Vancouver, and depending on where you come from. So let's say you're moving from California to Washington, or you're moving from New York to Washington, or even if you're moving from Texas to Washington, the amount of traffic other places have as compared to Vancouver is through the roof, right? Vancouver has so little traffic. The main times there are traffic, as I mentioned, are going to be just during rush hour. So, and that's mostly if you're commuting from Portland or commuting back and forth over the bridges. So if you're inside of Vancouver, you're not really going to have much traffic. If you do need to commute, sure. Of course, there are only 2 bridges to get across the Columbia River, so therefore, you might have some traffic. But overall, I think it's a pretty easy lifestyle. And I used to live in a place with a lot of traffic. In fact, sometimes when people tell me that there's traffic, we make this joke and say, oh, that's amateur hour. There was like a handful of people on the road. You haven't seen real traffic yet. So, and why would you want to see real traffic? Okay, let's jump into number 5, the Vancouver waterfront. Now, the Vancouver waterfront is not downtown. It's a new area, but it is kind of adjacent to downtown. Obviously, you have to go to the waterfront because it's on the Columbia River. It is a collection of beautiful new buildings. There are great new restaurants. There are a bunch of new stores. There's all these wine bars and tasting rooms that have opened. There's this cool ice cream place that's going to open. It's not open yet, but it is going to open. Don't worry, if you're down there, you can still get a like a freeze or some kind of cone that you can take and walk on the waterfront. But the waterfront, to me, shows that there's this huge vision to develop this neighborhood, and hopefully it expands more and more. You can see there are areas for new buildings to come, which is really exciting. And there's a new hotel down there as well. And when you're down there, you know, remember this, Vancouver, it's an older city, right? Homes have been there for many years. But when you go to the waterfront, you see this expansive new modern building area. And that's so exciting because that means you have all these new things coming. And if you live in Vancouver, you can just head right down to the waterfront. Maybe you could just ride your bicycle down there, or you can just take a quick drive and go out to all those great places. It's so fun on a beautiful day when you go out along the boardwalk and you stand there and you see these views that are spectacular. One of my favorite views is when you're on the waterfront and you can see the bridge that connects Oregon and Washington, right? That's the Interstate 5. And when you see the sunlight glistening off the water and you see these boats going by, it's really well done. I love it. I'm impressed. It reminds me of some things I've seen in other areas that are getting a lot of development. I was in Kentucky this one time, and I remember going to a place called, I think it's called the Levees in Kentucky, and it reminds me of that growing in that way, where you're bringing in these new developments. Really cool. Okay, let's finish up the pros with number 6. You can live and work in one city. Why is that important? Well, there's a couple reasons, right? There's convenience, of course, but also it just makes for an easier lifestyle. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me about their commutes, and a long commute does not make for an enjoyable day from what most people tell me. There was a time in my life when I had to commute, and I didn't really like it. Now, I know some of you love commuting. Some people love sitting in their car. They want to listen to a show or listen to something educational, or just maybe, you know, rock out to some music and relax. But I like the option of not having to commute. I like the option of being able to work and live in the same city, because I think that it creates a more relaxed lifestyle. You know what? If you want to get in your car and take a long drive one day, you can do that. And they're scenic drives, by the way. The drives, when you're going on these day trips in Vancouver, they're kind of scenic. I mean, you get to drive along the water, you get to see these forests, you get to see lavender fields, you get to go to this, there's like a historical place you can visit. There's a few of them that you can visit as you're driving. I like to do that thing where you stop off at a viewpoint, or you see one of those signs on the side of the road, and then it says, this thing is coming up, one of those brown signs. I love to check those things out because I want to see everything. So, all right, we've talked about some of the pros. What's next? Okay, we've got to turn this whole thing over, flip the coin, and let's talk about a few of the cons, because it's important that you are aware of where you're moving to and things you may or may not like. So, what do we got? Number 1 on the cons list is going to be the weather. The weather is very important to a lot of people when they're going to move somewhere. So what's the weather like in Vancouver? Here's the thing. In the winter, the weather is misty and drizzly. I don't feel like there's a ton of heavy rain. What you see is a lot of gray, okay? You see mist in the air, you see some drizzle come down, and then it'll just stop. And sometimes it'll do this for several days. That's right. It could be not sunny out for several days. So one of the cons is a lack of sun. In the winter, in the Pacific Northwest, there's not a lot of sunlight. There are occasional sunny days, but the amount of time where you see the sun is pretty small. You see a lot of colder gray weather, and you'll probably need to buy a jacket. Okay. I do want to say something about these jackets, though. They make some amazing jackets that can keep you so warm with the thinnest material. It's really incredible. Maybe you remember my story where I was talking about the first time I ever got a heavy jacket in another video. Or not a heavy jacket, a down jacket where it protected me from the cold. I was so impressed at how this thing kept me warm, even though it was so thin. it's amazing. The technology is amazing, or whatever's in there is just amazing. But you have to be realistic. You do have the winter, and if you cannot handle the gray and you absolutely have to have sun all the time, well, that's going to reduce your options almost anywhere you move in America. I can only think of a few places that have a lot of sun. I mean, of course, you're going to have California, you've got Florida, and what else do you have? You have Portugal, but if you're not planning on leaving the country, you know, that doesn't leave a lot of options. But how long is winter? It's one season. Now, obviously, sometimes winter lasts 3 months, sometimes it's a little less in terms of weather, sometimes it's a little more. You never know what's going to happen with the weather. It's unpredictable. But just know that the winters are gray. Now, let's turn that over. The summers are amazing. The summers are just incredible. And make sure to watch my other videos on the top reasons people are moving. And I tell you, the summers practically make it worth having to deal with any winter. But here's the thing I want to say about the winter. It does not snow, okay? Has there ever been snow? Sure, of course there's been snow. There have been 1 or 2 days of snow, but it's usually not sticky snow, so it's not piling up, right? The snow will melt fairly quickly. There's going to be an anomaly where you'll have some snow, but overall, you don't have to worry about things like heavy snow. You don't have to plow your driveway. You don't have to worry about those things. It makes life a lot easier, right? Because there's a difference between cold, raining, and snow. Those are different things, okay? So for me, I don't necessarily enjoy thinking about something like plowing my driveway or not being able to turn on my car. So that's not really a concern. And a lot of people have garages too. So hopefully when you find a place, you know, and I want to mention this real quick. Make sure when you reach out to us, you know, send us an email, text us, call us, whatever is good for you. If you need a bigger garage, make sure to mention that. I mean, obviously houses have 1-car and 2-car garages, but if you have something special, or like, let's say you're a boat owner and you want to be close to a marina where you can keep your boat, throw that in there. Mention that when you contact the team, because there are opportunities to get places that will be, you know, boat friendly. And if you want to live right on the river or you want to live on a lake, let us know. There are houses that are on the Columbia River, and well, those are beautiful, okay? Those are some of my favorite houses. There's this one house that I was showing my own family around. We were driving on this street. It was along the Columbia River, so you know they're nicer houses. And at one point, my dad said, "Hey, I need to see that one house again." We actually backed all the way up and slowly looked at it in awe. So there are just a lot of beautiful houses down there on the river. Okay, so what's number 2 on the cons list? Well, this doesn't affect everybody, but it does matter to some of you, and that is that there are not a lot of tech jobs in Vancouver. Here's the deal. There are technology jobs in Portland, Oregon, which is about 8 or 9 miles away. And it's over one of the 2 big bridges that we talked about in the other videos. But there are obviously some spin-off companies or companies in general that just work in Vancouver, possibly because they want to be closer to Portland, but they want to have those Washington benefits, you know, like the no income tax, or they want to be even closer to Seattle. And we're going to talk about that in 1 second. But I do want to say there aren't a ton of tech jobs. That doesn't mean there aren't a lot of jobs in general. That just means if you're looking for that type of job, keep that in mind. You know, but I do want to say one thing. As I spend so much time traveling around the country, and you know, I'm always looking at houses and communities, you know, one of the first things I ask myself is, can I live here? Do I want to live here? Is this where I want to be? And what's going on with the economic opportunity? There are only a few cities that have a lot of tech jobs. So here's the thing, you know, a lot of people have come from certain areas to Portland, which is a totally separate place, by the way. But if you needed to drive there for work, it's not so bad because you would have that close proximity. You'd get to live in Vancouver and then drive down there. You've got the rush hour traffic. We talked about that. But maybe you don't even have to use those traditional hours, or you can take some of the public transit that's down there. There is better public transit in Oregon. So that brings me to number 4 on the cons list. The public transit is okay. If you're the kind of person who does not use a car and does not want to drive, then there's a chance you'll have to use public transit. There is a bus system. There's actually some really nice new bus stops. They've modernized them, and I really give the city credit for this. I got to give them credit. I even took some pictures of the bus stops because I said, wow, look how nice they are. In places where I have lived in the past, sometimes a bus stop would just be just a pole, and like you just see a pole and like a tiny little sign. But no, they did a nice job. I mean, we've got to give them credit for this. They did a nice job with these stops, and that tells me they're working on the transit system. There is transit in place. There are definitely people who ride the bus. It's not a big deal. Now, if you're like someone who wants to bicycle or walk somewhere, when you reach out, like when you text us or whatnot, you want to throw that in there if you can. Like, hey, are there any places I can live that are kind of walkable or where I could bicycle, right? So just keep that in mind because the team can check that stuff out for you too. There are places you can actually do that in Vancouver, Washington. Okay, I'm gonna call this item number 4, but we're gonna jump back and mention this as kind of a con, but I just want to put it on the list. And that is that there's only one major city nearby. And that major city is Portland, Oregon. Obviously, Portland, Oregon is a different state, right? It's in Oregon. You're looking at Vancouver, Washington, or Camas, Washington, or Battlefield, Washington, or Battleground, Washington. But just keep that in mind. If you're the kind of person who wants a lot of excitement and wants to go to many different cities, well, then you're only going to have one big city nearby, and that's Portland. But the good thing is you have all this shopping and these amazing restaurants down there. The food scene is off the charts, right? It's pretty famous as a foodie city. In fact, I've seen it ranked as the top 3 foodie city in America. And I've also seen it coming up for other foods I never even thought of, like a pizza town. So who knows how that even popped up down there. But you only have proximity to Portland, Oregon. Now, if you are going to work in Seattle, Washington, keep in mind that's 2.5 hours away to the north, right? So if you need to go to Seattle frequently, you're not going to be right next to Seattle. Okay, Seattle is about 2.5 hours away, so keep that in mind. And then if you want to go all the way to the Canadian border, that's probably about, 5.5 hours away or so. And you can drive up there for vacation, though. So you can go from Vancouver, Washington to Vancouver, British Columbia, if that's something you want to do. All right. So once again, if you are thinking about moving to anywhere in Southwest Washington, or hey, if you're thinking about moving to Portland too, you've got to reach out to us, okay? Just send us an email, send us a text message, give us a call, 24/7. If it's good for you, right now, grab your calendar, go down there and schedule a video call with the team. They cannot wait to help you with your move. And everyone has such a passion for the Pacific Northwest. And that's something you're going to notice. When you come to the Pacific Northwest, people have a passion for living there. They're always wearing like sweaters with trees on them or their city name. And they're so proud of Mount Hood and all these beautiful things. Like I said, the scenery here is amazing. Okay, the scenery in the Pacific Northwest as compared to some other places is just so beautiful. The trees are like nothing I've ever experienced as I travel around the US and the world, and as I live my own life. Just seeing the trees, it's just wonderful. All right, everybody, I cannot wait to make the next video for you. Drop some notes in the comments below, of course. Tell us where you're moving from. Tell us what you like about different cities and what you're thinking about. I'd love to hear about it and can't wait to connect with you. Take care, everyone.